Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Farid Mabubi, and in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to create a virtual tour. So, as you probably already know, one of the modern ways to present architectural projects, which has become especially trendy in the last few years, is the virtual tour. This allows you to take your project, whether it's one you're working on, an interior design you're creating, or any architectural project, and present it as a virtual tour to your user, your client, or whoever your target audience is. They can then move through the spaces on their own, look around, and it makes viewing the project much more engaging for them. They can view it on their phone screen, on a computer, or even with virtual reality headsets. The question is, how do we create these? The way they're viewed is ultimately up to the audience. First off, we need panoramic renders, like the one you see here on the homepage of this website, Keypano. We call them 360-degree renders. And different rendering engines have a way to create these types of renders. This could be physics-based engines like V-Ray or Corona, or real-time engines like Lumion, Twinmotion, and Enscape. They all have this capability. And at the end of this video, I'll quickly show you how to create these renders in V-Ray, Corona, and Lumion, just in case you don't know how or need a refresher. But for now, let's first look at how to build the tour itself. There are several web applications, as I call them, because they're really more than just websites. You'll see what I mean when we start working with them. One of the good ones available to us is this site, Keypano, which we can use to build our virtual tour. Of course, other sites exist, and their features or terms might be different. One of the nice things about Keypano is that you can create a few virtual tours with it for free. To do this, we first need to log in. I've already signed up with my email, or rather my Gmail account, so I'll just go ahead and log in with that. All right, I'm logged in. There's a free create option here. We could also go into our account, but if we just click free create right here, it will take us to the creation panel. Okay, as you can see, we land on this page, and here you can specify the project's name. For example, I'll just call it, say, Interior 01. You know, whatever your project name is, like, I don't know, Project X. And this is where we can upload our images. We can upload images in various formats, but one of the best options is spherical with a 2:1 aspect ratio. As I mentioned, I'll show you how to create these renders in V-Ray, Corona, and Lumion at the end of the video. So after you have your renders, you just click Upload here. I have mine on the desktop in the Panel 2 folder. I have these 6 images. I'll select them and wait for them to upload. Okay, after the upload is finished, we press the Create button and wait for the operation to actually create that main file for us. Once this Succeed message appears, it means the process was completed successfully. And if we click View, it starts displaying the interior space we have. Okay, so for the most part, the bulk of the work is done. You can now click on any of the images to switch to another view of the project, which are just different spots where panoramic renders were taken. For example, this is the kitchen space. We can rotate, we can zoom in. You zoom by scrolling, and you can pan by holding down the left click button. Okay, the different parts, let's see. The bedroom on the other side as well. Even at this stage, you could say our needs are met, okay? But now we can do a few things to it to make it more engaging. We can add some options, some features to make it more interesting and engaging for the person who will be navigating this virtual tour. Let's go see. I'll go back to this section. We can either click Edit right from here, or we can close this and go into the My Tour section. Here we have 2 projects. For the one we just created, Interior 01, our projects are listed here, and there are several options available. If we click the Edit option here, we'll enter the editing space for the virtual tour we're building, and we can add some options here. For instance, we can add some information about it. We can go into the scene section, and from there, we can change the name of each of these items. For example, let's say I want to make things clearer and more organized, so I'll change their names to something more descriptive. For instance, I'll name this one right here, Entrance. This way, it's easier to identify what each part represents, and it helps keep everything well labeled and easy to understand as you work. And this one, just right over here, I'll call it Living Room 01. This one right here, the kitchen area. This one right here is what I call Living Room 02. It's a comfortable and welcoming space, perfect for spending time with family or friends. And this one is the entrance to the bedroom, which I'll just call Bedroom 03 for simplicity. It serves as a convenient passageway leading directly into the sleeping area. And this one over here is Bedroom 01. Okay, you can always change these names if you want to, so feel free to rename them however you like. For example, if you have 2 floors, 3 floors, or different spaces, you can come here and create different groups. We can create zones to categorize them to specify which group they actually belong to. Then from down below, you can change the group. Or for instance, when we have, as I said, either zoning for a very large project or we want to specify the floors. This grouping feature is very useful. You click Create New Group here, select the group names, and here you can also change the groups. Okay, I'll click Save for this to take effect, so we can edit the names. Now look, the names here have been edited. If we had groups, we could also have the groupings listed underneath here. And for information, as I said, you can write some general information about this project. Some explanations for the audience that wants to, say, enter the project. We can select an avatar for it. This is the hotspot section, which makes it a bit more engaging. With hotspots, we can place a series of elements within this, well, image. Let's see it together. We place a series of elements. For example, I'll come and use this one. Okay, I'll use this element, for example. I want to specify that when this is clicked, it should go to, for example, this other image. Okay, and I'll click Save here. It gets placed here, for example. Well, I'll put it here. Okay, I'll click Save. Now, look what happens. Whenever I'm, for example, moving around here and I come across this hotspot, it says if you click on this, it will go to Living Room 01 and I enter the space. Okay, now in this one, I can also add a hotspot. For example, here, I'll click Add Hotspot. I'll click this one and select Kitchen. Okay, I'll put it here. I'll save it. For example, if I come here, I'll select this one, select Living Room 2, and place it here. Well, its place was actually over there, but I put it here because it's more visible. And here, I'll select this one again. I'll select Bedroom 0, which is actually the entrance to this bedroom. We don't have the render for that other bedroom. We only have this bedroom on the left. Okay. And again here, I can use the same, for example, previous icon, specify the entrance, and I'll return here. Okay, let's see now. If I click on this, I go back to that entrance space. If I click on this, I enter this space. And whichever of these I click, I enter that other one. Again, in each of these, we can also, for returning to, say, those other spaces, define a hotspot again. For example, now I'll come again and use this one for Living Room 01, which I'll place here. And within this one, we can again introduce other hotspots, for example. Well, now, I think I've explained these hotspots enough. I'll place the kitchen one here again. We can also put the bedroom one over there. And in the same way, hotspots can be defined for all these spaces. Hotspots can be defined. For example, the ruler tool lets us place certain elements inside for dimensioning. Now, for whatever reason, you might want to show a dimension to the audience. So I'll click inside the scene, let's say from here to here. I'll name it, for example, kitchen size. And, well, the thickness of this line can also be set. Now here, I don't know how many centimeters it is, so I'll just write something like this for it. And we can also choose a color for it. For example, I'll set it to black and save. We've basically created a dimension, like a dimensioning tool. And to, for example, show the audience a dimension, that, hey, the size here is this much. Okay, I'll delete this. I don't want it. For example, for sound design, so that some music or something plays in the space if you'd like, you can, well, select music for it. Here, we can also introduce our floor plan image. If we have a plan, we introduce our floor plan image, and for each of these images we're in, we can specify its corresponding point on the plan. It'll then show our floor plan at the bottom of the screen. Now, I don't have the plan for this space, and it can write some text for us at the top of the screen, for example. Then there are some other options, but the rest might not be that widely used. The first few are probably more common. For example, you can select a logo to be displayed instead of its own logo. The rest of the options are simple. There's nothing special. And just like that, you can create an engaging virtual tour and send it to your client or your audience. Now, one, you can download its QR code. Okay, which is this one. Download the QR code, and then you can put it wherever you like. For example, put it at the project site so the audience can scan it with their phone and enter. Or you can click copy link and share this link. For example, you can share the link on Instagram, put it on your website, or, well, send the link in a group, a channel, wherever you want. If you want to delete it, or if you want to copy it to make another one, if you want to go into its settings, if you want to change its cover, for example, change cover. For example, you could put the project's logo or, well, select one of the project's photos or renders, maybe one that has a square frame. Overall, the interface is simple to work with. In the Pro plan, well, it gives you some more features, but even this free plan can help us a lot. And you can create engaging tours with it and, well, send them to friends. Look, guys, if I copy this link, for example, I'll paste the link here. Anyone who has this link, as soon as they click on it, they'll enter the space. You see? Others can like it, friends can share it. Here, you can maximize it to, well, full screen. If you're using a headset, VR headsets, this headset feature can be turned on. For example, it removes these icons for you. Or you can change the display style to different forms. Okay, so that's it for the options available in the settings. Let's now go to 3ds Max. Inside 3ds Max, I'll tell you how to configure the settings for these panoramic renders with V-Ray and Corona, and I'll also show you in Lumion. Alright, first I'll explain it for you inside V-Ray. From the V-Ray camera that you use, look guys, the general rule for any other render engine you're using in 3ds Max is the same. This is a general rule. V-Ray, Corona, F-Storm, they're all the same. Try to place the camera in the center of that space in a way that, well, it can see all around it. It shouldn't go inside objects. For example, this camera shouldn't go onto the dining table. It should be placed between spaces, okay? So you place your camera in the center of the space. In terms of height relative to the ground level, place it at human eye level. For example, 1.5, 1.6 is a good number. Okay? So the height is 1.5, 1.6. Its view should be completely straight. And preferably, it should be in the direction you want the image to be displayed when it opens on the website. It's better to place your camera in that same direction. For example, let's look at this camera together, okay? It has this kind of direction, at this kind of height and this kind of direction, and it's completely straight, meaning the view is perpendicular. So pay attention to these few matters. In the center of the space, a height of 1.5, 1.6, and its view is completely straight, meaning it's not looking down or up. Then, inside V-Ray, you configure the settings like this. You go into Render Setup, and you go into the settings. I'll close the rollouts, find the camera rollout, and you change this from the default state. You set it to spherical. You turn on override and set it to 360 degrees. That's it. It will give you a 360-degree render. And the render size must have a 1:2 ratio, just as it was written on the website. 1 for height, 2 for length. You see? 3,000 by 6,000. 2,000 by 4,000. I recommend not going lower than 2,000 by 4,000 because the quality will be very low. 3,000 by 6,000 is a very good number. At least 2,000 by 4,000. If you go higher, Well, it will be fantastic, but around 2000 by 4000 or 3000 by 6000 is a good number. For example, it can be 2500 by 5000. It can be 2000 by 4000, but the ratio must be 1 to 2. It absolutely must, under any circumstances. And the rest of the settings, like whether you want to have a denoiser or what quality you want to render it with, that's up to you. And you render it. Now, in Corona, the story is exactly the same. Let me explain it for you in Corona as well. In Corona, when you place your camera, I personally turn off the target in these situations, okay? Place your camera, and it can look in any direction, at any angle you want. Look at this kitchen. I'll place it next to the view ray camera. Try to keep it at the exact same height. I'll set this to a height of around 1.50, relative to the ground level. And the initial explanations are the same. In the center of the space, a height of 1.50, 1.60, and the proportions, the settings are also the same. It makes no difference. A 1 to 2 ratio. But in Corona, you don't need to go into the render settings. You go into the camera settings. Instead of perspective, you set it to spherical 360 degrees, so it looks like a soccer ball. Something like this. And in Corona, you take your renders with a camera like this. Let's go inside Lumion and see it too. Alright, I'm going to work with Lumion version 2024. It's the same in other versions. Before I do that, let me tell you something. If you're interested in learning professional modeling in 3D Max, or the software itself, learning the V-Ray and Corona render engines completely from scratch and project-based, the Lumion render engine, or Twinmotion, we have courses for all of these on the Apatomy website. They're from 0 to 100, project-based, and we teach you all the options so you can easily learn and work with them. Now, maybe some of you learned V-Ray, Corona, or Lumion many years ago and need to update your skills. You can easily do that with our online courses. Okay, let's get to Lumion. In Lumion, the location of these icons differs in various versions. In older versions, it's here. In the new version, it's here. It doesn't matter. You click on the 360-degree render. And, well, the settings are fully explained in the Lumion course. Those of you who work with it already know. After the camera's position is determined and defined, you go to Render. And from this section, look, you can see the proportions here too. The proportions are 1 to 2, 2000 by 4000, 4000 by 8000. And you can render it with maximum quality. We also have a cubic mode. In the V-Ray and Corona render engines, cubic is also available. But the cubic mode has a drawback where it creates some lines in the corners that might not be appealing. The spherical mode also has a weakness. At the bottom and top, there might be 2 pinched points, but since they're usually below the viewer's feet and above their head, they're not very noticeable. That's why spherical is a much more suitable option. Okay, so here if you want normal quality, you choose medium. For high quality, large. You want large, and the output quality is set to product quality, the highest setting, and then you start the render. So for example, I'll start the render, I'll just use a default setting. You can see it's rendering in that same spherical mode for you. This is also the case in other render engines. We have this in Twinmotion and in Enscape as well. In other render engines within 3DX like FStorm, Octane, but well, I've explained the ones most used in architecture for you. You should be able to work with them on your own. I just touched on what the standard and principles are, how to configure them and get a render. My goal wasn't really to teach you these render engines in this video. I just wanted to point out how we were able to create those renders we used at the beginning of the virtual tour using these render engines. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Present your projects as virtual tours, and your clients will absolutely love it. Good luck!